Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure, immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Continuing with discussions on the status of woman. I wanted to finish this yesterday, but since I was only given 30 minutes, a bit remained. So inshallah, I'll try and finish it today. So we've gone through some important traditions already. So for those who've missed yesterday and the day before, it's maybe a bit difficult to follow, but still, inshallah, you can always go back. There's one tradition from Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salam. There were some men complaining in relation to their wives. Then he gave this very important tradition. It's a code of practice in relation to women in general. فَدَارُوهُنَّ عَلَى كُلِّ حَالٍ. See, it's another example of how marrying completes you spiritually, where you can improve through marriage. See, well, I've mentioned this before. See, permanent marriages, the aim is sacred. You want to get closer to Allah. That's the primary objective in permanent marriages. You want to get closer to Allah. And that's why they say, look, it's important that you must have taqwa. Now, taqwa has degrees to it. I don't want to go through all of them. But you know, abiding by the Sharia is the minimum degree of taqwa. You want to get closer to Allah. If this is not an aim, Islam has other routes. Inshallah, I think on Monday, there are aspects of the temporary marriage which has to be opened. People are misunderstanding things. I'll speak about that then. But in permanent marriages, the aim, the goal is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't have that, look, you have to think about it. If Allah's not in an objective, one can say a lot here, but I want to keep it for later. But the point is, the financial status quo, the beauty of the woman, all these are important, but these are secondary issues. They can't be primary issues in a permanent marriage. Even if you marry the most beautiful woman in the world, let's say in the first week they have an accident, Allah forbid, and they become scarred in a permanent marriage. What are you going to do then? You see, are you just going to let it go? The purpose behind a permanent marriage has to be divine. You know, I have problems when the youth come to me and say, I want to get married. And I say, why do you want to get married? And then they bring these biological reasons. True, in Islam it does say that if not marrying leads to you to sin, to commit adultery or to masturbate, I'm sorry to use these terms, but you see, I have a right to use them because I'm receiving your children's emails. Many parents have no idea what's happening. You know, it's not fair for me just to keep it within myself and suffer. I have to, you know, some things have to be expressed. In Islam, true, it says if you not marrying leads to your sinning, it's a wajib to marry. But it never says it's wajib to marry the permanent way. It's a pity if you marry a permanent marriage only for animalistic reasons. Permanent marriages are for life. There has to be a divine communion there. Allah has to be the goal, both ways. Other than that, if you marry, there's going to be problems. But if the divine element is the criterion, even if she scars herself after the first week, let's say, God forbid, during the honeymoon, the love is still there. Because the love is divine. It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So marriage, one can spiritually elevate through different means. Here Amir al-Mu'mineen has given a very important code. داروهن في كل حال على كل حال. In all states, whatever the scenario, you compromise with her. You should lower your temper. Be patient. In all states, be forgiving. Look, we only grow spiritually as a result of how we behave with people. And the most difficult of people to be patient with, to compromise with, to observe them in all states, are those who are most closer to you. Your parents, your wives, your spouses, husbands, children. It's very difficult. You become so used to one another, it becomes much easier to suddenly explode in anger or do different things. But if you manage to preserve the Islamic etiquette with these people who you're facing every day, and you فَدَارُهُنَّ عَلَى كُلِّهَا, you're growing. Then Imam continued, وَأَحْسَنُوا لَهُنَّ عَلَى النَّقَالِ. Now it's teaching you how to compromise with them, how to be patient. Speak very properly with them. Don't shout. Preserve the veils of chastity. We're humans. We speak like humans. Even if you're downstairs and she's upstairs and you're on this side of the house, don't shout to when you want something from her. No, animals do that. Don't enhance that animal dimension within you. So you speak when you're together, and you speak properly. Don't raise your voice. Now we're all humans. We all do mistakes, but we just have to make that endeavor. We have to make an effort to maximally know how to speak properly. And if you do that, يُحْسِنَّ الْفِعَالِ, then they will behave properly towards you. Very important code here, once again. Also a code of how to behave with the woman, and also how you can grow through her. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in relation to Archangel Gabriel, he has one tradition where he said, "Lam yazal yusini bin nisa." That Gabriel wouldn't stop enjoining me towards women. He would constantly do it, to such an extent that hatta, until ظننت أن لا يحل لزوجها أن يقول لها أف. It had reached a point that I had believed that it wasn't halal to even speak or express an uff to my wife, or to women, for us, even for us. The way that Jibreel was keep on constantly enjoining to observe your women had reached such a point that I was almost on the brink of believing that we're not allowed even to say off to the woman. Now, off in the Quran, although I may not know the exact Arabic off my head, but there's a verse which says, "La taqul lahuma off." Don't say off to your parents. وَلَا تَنْهَرْ, don't repel them. وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, speak with them nobly, generously. Now that's in the Quran. It's in relation to one's parents. But the word off was used. The way Imam Sadiq alayhi salam explains this off, it can get very delicate. Even something very minor as, "Oh no, I don't want that," or even if you think that, in some traditions we see that qualifies as off. It's not only physically, it's not only confined to the physical expression, even how you think can qualify as off. And the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he believed that in relation to women too. I was almost on the brink of believing that you can't even say off. The way that Jibreel was keep on, enjoining me towards women, and so on and so forth. So you see, the importance of it can be very dramatic. Okay, so the last 2 days, and today a bit, there are a number of codes that we've acquired. Isbir alayha, let them be patient towards them. It was the example of the rib bone tradition. Don't break them. Don't try and straighten them. Then we spoke about the Sharia saying, look, they have no duties before you. There may be many mustahab actions. There may be many things which are good for women to do. But on the wajib scale, they have no duties towards the husband except those two, and we spoke about those two. And even those two, it's dependent upon the man doing all his wajib duties. If he compromises to the same proportion he compromises, they can also compromise, but with those two only. So they only have 2 wajib duties. So, now in the traditions, yes, it's true that in the traditions we have many things where the imams tell women how to behave with their husbands and in the family. None of them are wajib, but still, it's spiritually elevating for the woman to do them. But when you look at these traditions, there are 2 things to take in mind. I'll give examples in a minute. That these traditions, with those actions, it's enhancing the nurturing capacity of the woman. That's why it's saying it's good for the woman to do this. It's good for them to do that. It's because it's nurturing that. It's enhancing. It wants the woman to enhance that nurturing capacity. Because we spoke about this. We said that the woman by essence is a nurturer in a way that men can't be. Her essence is that of nurturing. That's why we shouldn't try and straighten them. We shouldn't try to burden them. That's why they don't have many obligatory actions and so on and so forth. Let them be isbir alayha, and they will nurture automatically. Now in the traditions, there are many things that it's good if the woman does this, it's good for them to do that, but these are only examples. The problem is today people take them as the only things that women should do. No, these are examples given for a woman at that time. It applies to this time also, but it's not confined to those examples that the traditions say it's good for them to do this or that. The traditions never say it's wajib, they just say it's good for them to do it, it's mustahab, it's good, and so on and so forth. Where we fall usually in our understanding, we limit it only to those things. These things are important, they're good, and they are applicable today. However, when we confine it only to that, and it's only in the home, when you confine everything to the home, no, that's not an Islamic perspective. It's not a broad understanding of Islam. Islam is a global religion, and it never wants to do that. And here we see culture coming in and interrupting the Islamic equilibrium, and then things become messed up and mixed up, and then suddenly in the name of Islam, women have to do many things, and then the West come and they propagate that in their media. They even think that is Islam, and then everything becomes now. For us to unwind it, it's going to be very difficult. I only give a number of speeches every year. I can't unwind these misinterpretations which are being infiltrated in society today here in the West. You can, those who are living here. But if you just drown in yourselves, occupation-wise, and only think of yourselves, even if you're a doctor, engineer, architect, then you would fail in this regard too. And you wouldn't be acting as a true ambassador. It's limited. But I'm telling you, for parents here today, that if your child enters media studies, journalism, those kind of, cinematography, that's much more important than being a cardiac surgeon, a fully qualified architect. For Islam, though, today, that's what we need, is to eliminate these misinterpretations of Islam. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. Let's say your child wants to go into media studies, into journalism, they'll learn that they can do it. You have to start, you have to start once. In some states in America, there may be 10% Muslims, or 10% of the children are Muslims at least. It's growing. In Europe, it's going to be maybe 50% Muslims in 20 years' time, especially countries like Germany, which are 10% right now, England, France. It's going to reach a time, the next generation, where you're forced to enter these fields. You have to. You're forced to be local councillors. You can't escape it because there are so many Muslims. But the point I want to mention is this, that if your child says, I want to go into media studies, for example, or journalism, don't act as an impediment before them. You don't understand media studies and what media can do. You don't understand what journalism is or what journalism can do. They understand it. And what they can do in Islam's name with these tools will be, for every 1 year, of their, whatever, be it in the cinema, be it in journalism, 1 year of their services in that field will be more than whatever I do in my whole life as a seminary student. How things bear in society here. So it's something important, and there may be other subjects too. It's not all about medicine and engineering. If you do, then that's for your own sake, and that's good, it's not bad. You can be a doctor, and then your intention may be to go and help those who are in need freely here in America or outside. That's also good. But there are a minority of doctors who do that. Most doctors get drowned in their professions. Most architects get drowned in their professions. Anyway, let's not divert too much. So, in those traditions where it says, so for example, if a woman gives a glass of water to their husband, it's more valuable than 1 year of ibadat. Or for example, if they provide food for their husband, it's not their duty to provide food, but if they do, heavenly foods are prepared for them. You see, these are all good, providing all these different things. The reason Islam says these are good is because it's enhancing the nurturing capacity of the woman. The reason Islam says they're not wajib, because Islam doesn't want to break the woman. You should now have these criteria at hand now. But the point is, it's not limited to these actions. That's important. That's where we fail usually. Yes, she is a nurturer with a nurturing capacity, but that doesn't mean she has to only nurture at home. If she does nurture at home with the cooking, feeding, raising children, it's extremely good. It's more than a jihad. No one is against that. But maybe some women don't want to do that. Maybe they can nurture better outside the home. As long as that nurturing is happening, that's important. But you can't force them. Women are different. Let's say someone doesn't want to raise, let's say, their children. They want to bring maids to do it. We can't, attack them. We can't say they're less pious. No, even from an Islamic standpoint. Let's say a woman doesn't want to cook. We can't, from an Islamic standpoint, we can't say they are less pious. No. None of these are their duties. If they want to do it, so much the better. And if they want, they can do something else. As long as they nurture, they can nurture as an architect. You can nurture as a doctor. You can nurture in other professions. But that's what they do. They're nurturers. And then if in Islam, in some professions, they say, no, don't go there, don't do jihad, don't do this, don't do that, because it's at odds with that nurturing capacity. And we gave some examples before. And Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah alayhi, many times he said women have to be active in all walks of life. We need women, doctors, engineers, architects, graphic designers, this, that, everything, in all walks of life. So it should, if one can do it, and they feel they can nurture in this way, let them do it. Centuries ago, it was common. It's not a bad thing. All Muslim households, they had maids, they had au pairs. Now, they might be Christian maids or au pairs. They had it. Because they let them do all these burdens at home, not the wife, and the wife was free. We see it in some parts of the world today. It's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as we abide by the certain criterion that were mentioned yesterday in that very useful talk on human trafficking. No, you can't enslave anyone. But au pairs don't automatically mean, enslaving people. No. You pay them, their services, you get them, you treat them very with compassion and everything. But then it's good for the woman of the house. Then she will be free. She can nurture, maybe she can focus just on the child, if she wants to. She can nurture on other things. But she's a nurturer. That shouldn't be compromised. Now, the next point is this. Now, when I first spoke about women more than a year ago, the different Irfani angles and other angles too on the woman, I kept on receiving offers to speak about men too. That how women have to treat men and how women have to grow through the man. Which attributes of Allah does the man manifest more than a woman can? And that the woman sees Allah through this man, through those attributes. In the same way that the man sees Allah's rububiyyah, rahmaniyyah, jamaliyah, these attributes through the woman. What attributes are there that the woman has to see through the man? The problem is this, that I shouldn't really be speaking about this. A woman, a scholar, a female scholar, has to come and speak about this, because I won't be able to market this idea as a man. It won't stand. But if a woman, in the same way that I can speak about the woman and what men can do, here a female scholar has to do it. And you'd be surprised how many people have asked me to do it. And I haven't done it till tonight. And only I just want to refer to one or two things here. I don't have that depth to go into that. Female scholars, we need female scholars. It's important. And they can nurture in that way. We do have female scholars in Rome. And they've come back to the West. And they divided. Some of them for reasons of haya, and being embarrassed, or for modesty reasons, they don't want to speak in a crowd with men, and they speak in front of women alone. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that Islamically. And for them, spirituals, we don't want to judge them if they're more comfortable with that. And there are those who know they're okay to speak. And you have to invite those people too. Because it's necessary. There are some aspects that the woman can touch upon much more delicately. Then men and women will accept it better. So that's something maybe you can't think of. They do exist though. It's just that you have to invite them. Now, in relation to the woman, what attributes are there in the man? What is the man essentially? The woman essentially was a nurturer. And therefore many of the rules in the Sharia are based on this fact. Now let me finish the point, and then so you have what I want to say. Don't suddenly panic in the middle of what I'm about to say. is the man by nature, intrinsically? Something that is intrinsic to the man. If the man doesn't do, he's wasting himself, identity-wise, in the same way that a woman will be wasting herself, identity-wise, if she doesn't nurture. Which aspect of the man is it? And which attributes of Allah are manifested stronger in the man? And the woman has to respect and see these attributes, so that the man becomes a conduit to Allah for the woman. Here, the attributes that some have suggested that manifest more in the man are those of Allah's raziqiyya and Allah's being al-qawi and al-muhibb. The man intrinsically is a provider. See, being a provider differs to being a nurturer. So two different areas here. The man has to provide. Identity-wise, it's essential for his growth. And he manifests Allah's raziqiyya, one who provides sustenance. Allah's al-qawi, being the strong, the all strong one. Allah's being al-muhib, one who loves. These have to be provided by the man. And many of the rules of the Sharia are based on this concept, that the man is a provider, essentially, identity-wise. And that's why we have the whole concept of the nafaqa here. With the nafaqa, the man has to provide, he has to work, he has to be strong, has to provide, he has to give food, shelter, clothing, travels, all these different things. What she had pre-marriage, the man has to maintain. It becomes a wajib for the man now to maintain the woman. And this is manifesting Allah's quwwa, raziqiyya in such ways. Even his love has to be provided. He has to provide that love to the woman. Here, Shahid Mutahari, in one of his works, he said that the male has been created as a manifestation of seeking, loving, and requesting, whereas the woman has been assigned as one who is sought, one who is loved, and one who is requested. And he says, in quotes, the woman is the flower, whilst the man is the nightingale. The woman has been assigned as the candle, and the man the butterfly. Need and want has been made instinct in one, in the man, whilst being coy and manifesting has been assigned in the other. See, the woman's the nurturer, the man's the provider. And there are some attributes of Allah that the man does through this providing, and the woman has to respect that. Now, two questions arise now. What if now the woman is the provider? And in the West we see this more and more now, where the woman, at least now, she's providing for 50%. Now what I'm about to say is, and in general what I do say, I don't want you to think that this is 100% correct. There are some principles we have in Islam, I'll give those. There are some absolutes, I'll give those. Yes, you can accept all that. But sometimes I come as a scholar and just give my own understandings of various things. That there's no need to accept it. I'm just sharing with you. And you can share with me. Now this, what I'm about to say now, is quite, I don't want to think that this is it, 100%. There's no problem if you don't. Living Islam in the East is different to living Islam in the West. One problem that we have when we want to live Islam in the West is that we want to adapt Islam and make it conform to the level and standard of living in the West. We're limiting Islam. We want to accommodate that Islam in a Western context. And that's okay to some extent. But I have to tell you that if you don't be careful, you'll just be killing the soul with this continuous assimilating your Islam within a Western context. We can't compromise with Islam, especially the spiritual values and the Sharia. These values are important. And they may not be practiced in the East either. That's not my issue here. But what we're seeing sometimes is people are a bit embarrassed in front of their friends at the workplace, and they conform Islam in a particular way so that others be friendly, more friendly towards them. There's no need for that. Don't compromise Islam's principles because of that. I'll give the example here of the woman and man here. Because, in Islam, it wants you to refine your soul. Sometimes when you adapt it within a certain context, you're limiting and maybe wasting the soul. And after many years down the line, you see that the soul is as if you've committed suicide. You just wasted away the soul year after year. The solution is that you have to be proud of those principles in Islam and explain it to the West. If homosexuality is not accepted in Islam, understand why it's not accepted, and then tell the person who's gay that I love you as a person. That's the Islamic way. No thing is bad. No creature is bad in Islam. Have compassion towards them. Even socialize with them unless you feel your faith will be compromised. But you have to care for them. However, with pride, and tell them, but what you're doing, the action I don't agree with for X, Y, Z reasons. But don't change Islam just because you want to be more friendly with them or for society to be more accepting of you. No. There's no need for that. You love society, you love people, you love your fellow American neighbors, and so on and so forth. One day you'll have to enter politics in the local, you have to be local councillors one day. Whether you want it or not, your children will have to enter that scene. Be a local councillor, care for your fellow Americans, let them see what being a Muslim is all about. But never compromise the spiritual and canonical principles we have. And the reason why most people do compromise with it, they want to either be more accepted in this society, but they're wrong to think that. If you're not going to be accepted, you'll never be accepted. But don't use Islam as a tool, don't waste it. If you want to be accepted, follow the compassionate line of Islam towards your fellow creatures. But don't accept sins. Love the sinner, never the sin. We don't accept it. So if they want to suddenly, the movements which are propagating gay marriages, no, be very proud, go and say, no, I don't accept that. And I've spoken about homosexuality before, the reasons why it's a detriment to society. It's anti-woman, it's anti-society. The Quran very delicately explains this. And you can find it on YouTube. You have to understand why it's wrong, rather than saying, oh, it's disgraceful, and they're disgusting. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So you shouldn't compromise. Now look, one of the spiritual values in Islam is that the woman is a nurturer, the man is a provider. Now you come to the West and the woman wants to work. There's no problem in that. But what if the work that she wants to do is a chore and a burden to her to the extent that it's compromising her nurturing capacity, at least at home with the children and the husband? You see, their problems arise now. We have to think about this. If the woman wants to work, it's okay. There's nothing haram in that. But then when the woman is limited, given all these different times, where they're disciplining her, you have to go at this time, you have to work like this, like that. Where they see it's destroying her nurturing capacity, it's going to be a problem. Whether you like it or not, because your essence is a nurturing essence. You can't be disciplined like that. You have to be free. That's what Islam wanted, to choose your nurturing destiny. So Islam isn't against women working, but be careful, this is a potential trap. And it's so important that the woman chooses her destiny, that nurturing destiny, that she has to do it freely, that Islam has given no wajib duties apart from those two. Let her be free, let her do what she wants. But then Islam says, no, the man though has to work. Because that nurturing capacity is of a much lower manifestation in the man. The man has to work. There are some men who are forcing their women to work. Saying, look, you have to contribute to this. If the woman doesn't want to, don't push her. It won't work in your own best interest in the long run. If it's only about getting a bigger house, getting better things, you don't need a better house. Look, don't let a bigger house, a bigger car, bigger materialistic things compromise the fact that she's a nurturer. If that's compromised, you won't benefit in the long run. Your children won't benefit in the long run. Society won't. But for the man, he manifests Allah's razaqiyya, Allah's quwwah. The man provides, has to provide. It's part of his essence. A man can't just sit there doing nothing. If he does that, he's wasting himself. And the woman, he provides for the woman. Those traditions that are sensitive in relation to the woman being obedient to the man is in relation to when the woman criticizes the man in his manner of being a provider. I'll just go through one or two traditions here which I found. One tradition from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, لو أن جميع ما في الأرض من ذهب وفضة حملته المرأة إلى بيت زوجها ثم ضربت على رأس زوجها يوما من الأيام تقول من أنت إنما المال مالي حبط عملها ولو كانت من أعبد الناس إلا أن تتوب وترجع وتعتذر إلى زوجها. Which is translated as this: that if all the world was in gold and silver and it was the belongings of the woman, and that after the woman marries with all these belongings, they hit the husband's head, not physically hitting them, but it's, a metaphor for debasing them, saying, who are you? What do you have? My property is mine. What are you doing in your angle of providing everything? All her actions will be devoid, spiritually that is. They won't grow, they won't elevate. Even if they're the most worshipping of people, by doing such a thing, their actions will be void for two reasons. I'll explain it in a minute. Unless they return and ask for forgiveness from the husband and mend their ways. But why is this looked at such a bad way when they're looking down upon the husband in relation to how the husband is providing and what the husband has? One is because it doesn't do service to their nurturing capacity. It goes in odds to that. And two, when the husband is making an effort, is manifesting Allah's attributes to the best of his capacity, by going against that and negating it, it's in a way negating that manifestation of divine attributes that the man is manifesting. And that's, being ungrateful. Another tradition, أيما امرأة لم ترفق بزوجها, whatever woman doesn't show compassion to his husband, وحملته على ما لا يقدر عليه وما لا يطيق, and doesn't show compassion. And the example of not showing compassion is they burden the husband with things which the husband isn't able to do. It's out of his physical capacity now. He has a limit at the end of the day. But the woman keeps on wanting him to do more. لم تقبل منها حسنة. No good deeds of theirs will be accepted from her. وتلقى الله, they'll encounter Allah after death. وهو عليها, Allah will be upon them غضبان. He'll be angry. That wrath of Allah will be upon them. That the husband is doing his best, is manifesting Allah's attributes to the best of his capacity, and you keep on going against him, keep on belittling him. That's not acceptable. If the woman wants to work, she can. There's no impediment there. However, the nurturing aspect shouldn't be compromised with. In the West, it seems to be happening slowly, where working now becomes a goal. That nurturing capacity, which is her true identity, is being compromised. Her children are suffering. Now, you may not receive emails. I'm receiving the emails. Although the community leaders here may be seeing it. She may have the best of professions. She may have everything. But now she's suffering with a child. It's too late now. Don't come to me with an 18-year-old and saying, he's not religious, he's not this. Educating the child starts with pre-procreation. Starts from 0 to 7 in a particular way. I'll speak about this tomorrow, inshallah. The way Islam sees how we have to raise our children. It has a protocol. From 0 to 7, one way. 7 to 14, another way. 14 onwards, another way. It goes through it. We have to practice that. See, these shouldn't be compromised. If these are compromised because you just want to reach your materialistic goals here, and the man lets go of his provider identity, the woman lets go of his nurturing capacity, well, the result will be confused offspring. It's slowly happening. Every community has to make its effort not to make that region acceptable. Okay, now I think the time is over. I still haven't finished one or two bits, so I'll finish with these one or two. Am I right to think that the dua is before? Yes. So inshallah, stop here and inshallah I'll continue with this tomorrow. Sallallahu Muhammad wa